Thank you, ma'am. Lord Zamir Chaudhry, Chairman, Conservative Friends of Pakistan, Honorable Ministers, Lords, Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I would like to begin by thanking Lord Zamir and the Conservative Friends of Pakistan for providing me an opportunity to engage with notable Conservative Party members, though virtually. Pakistan and United Kingdom have enjoyed strong and historical bilateral relations. We remain politically and economically connected owing to the presence of a large Pakistani diaspora in the UK. The visit of the royal couple, the Duke and the Duchess of Cambridge, in October 2019, resumption of British Airways flights to Pakistan, cricketing interaction between the two sides, close cooperation during the outbreak of COVID-19 to repatriate nationals of the two countries are good signs of a growing relationship. Pakistan and the UK are, in my view, in agreement to build further on this excellent bilateral relationship, and we need to look at new areas of cooperation post Brexit. The world, as Lord Zamir has just pointed out, is passing through a challenging time due to COVID-19 pandemic. I am certain that no one is safe unless everyone is safe, and one is hearing of the rising level of infections once again in Europe, and that is of concern. It has triggered the worst recession since the Great Depression of the last century. The economic effect is visible on every economy of the world. However, its implications are more pronounced on developing countries due to the limited fiscal space available to them. Keeping this in view, Prime Minister Imran Khan launched a global initiative on debt relief for developing countries so that they can effectively utilize their resources in fight against the pandemic and strengthening their fragile healthcare system. Our government, I'm talking of the Pakistani government, was faced with a twin challenge of how to save lives and livelihoods at the same time. Despite financial difficulties, the government announced a relief package of over $8 billion for health services and support for the poorest and most vulnerable sections of our society. We could not afford a complete lockdown as was done by many developed countries in the West, particularly in Europe, nor announce an economic stimulus that many countries did, trillions of dollars. But we adopted a policy of what we call smart lockdown, through which the government concentrated on the virus hotspots, recognizing our limited resources. We concentrated on the hotspots and opened up other sectors which generated livelihoods for millions of Pakistanis. Our strategy, which we call TTQ, which is test, trace, and quarantine, has worked well so far. And today, Pakistan is cited by WHO as a success story in controlling and responding to the pandemic. I must admit that the threat has not gone away and we cannot afford to be complacent. Several British Pakistani doctors and paramedics lost their lives in line of duty. Dr. Habib Zaidi, a British Pakistani, was one of the first doctors of the National Health Service who sacrificed his life in the fight against COVID-19. Another British doctor, Dr. Tariq Shafi Late, for his services, we've recognized him and announced a prestigious civil award recognizing his commitment and devotion to patients and his services during the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, our government, which has been in office now for slightly over 2 years, inherited a difficult economic situation. And believe you me, COVID-19 hasn't helped at all. When we came into office, we realized that all the economic, macroeconomic indicators were pointing in the wrong direction. So, in order to stabilize the economy, we had to go for the IMF stabilization program. We undertook structural reforms, and those structural reforms, they were painful, politically difficult, but we had no choice but to go ahead and do it. But now they've started showing results. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, and they've, every economy has gone through contraction because of COVID-19, things have started improving. For the first time in many years, we have recorded a current account surplus. Our fiscal deficit has also gone down. Our exports, that were stagnant for many years, grew in volume by 8%. Our domestic tax collection has increased by 30% because of a number of measures that the government announced. Our currency markets have stabilized. Stock market has rebounded. Remittances, a key foreign exchange earner, for the first time crossed $20 billion. Investor confidence is improving. We stepped 28 notches up on the ease of doing business index, and this is prepared by the World Bank. Moody's has upgraded Pakistan's outlook from negative to stable. According to Bloomberg report, Pakistan's stock exchange outperformed many stock markets. Condé Nast Traveler, a leading US luxury travel magazine, has named Pakistan as one of the world's best destinations for holidays for the next decade. Undiscovered. We have beautiful north. Many haven't traveled there, and as it's opening up, we see a growing number of domestic tourism grow, and British Pakistanis, American Pakistanis, Canadian Pakistanis, visiting, and coming to Pakistan with their families for holidays. Let me also take this opportunity to share a concern, a threat posed to us, and that is climate change. Pakistan's contribution to carbon emission is minimal, yet it is amongst the most vulnerable countries to the negative impact of climate change. And the pendulum swings from drought conditions to floods, and that's the variation that we are facing. We've decided to launch a very ambitious program to plant 10 billion trees in the next 3 years as our contribution to address the adverse effects of climate change. And I would also, on foreign policy, I can just, one of the positive developments in the region is the intra-Afghan, the commencement of the intra-Afghan negotiations. As you know, Pakistan facilitated the US-Taliban peace agreement that was signed in Doha on the 29th of February. We just had Dr. Abdullah in Islamabad. He was here for 3 days. He is the chairman of the High Council for Peace and Reconciliation, and I had a good exchange of views with him. So on the Western Front, there is a significant and a positive development, and there's hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel, because after years of conflict, there's recognition that peace is in order, and we have to reconcile, we have to coexist, and for that, the best way forward is a negotiated political settlement. But on the eastern side, unfortunately, the situation remains tense. I would like to avail this opportunity to seek your attention to the grave human rights and humanitarian situation in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. On the 5th of August last year, India illegally and unilaterally attempted to alter the disputed status of the Indian occupied Kashmir and change the demographic structure of a occupied territory, which is a clear violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. India has deployed additional troops to the area, which is already one of the most militarized zones in the world. Kashmiri leaders are incarcerated, and thousands of civilians have been tortured. Use of brute force, including pellet guns, against peaceful protesters, imposition of collective punishments with the destruction of the entire neighborhood is going on a daily basis. Extrajudicial killings of innocent young Kashmiris are tactics used to break the will of the people fighting for their right to self-determination. These facts are well documented in the reports of the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights, the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights. Several human rights and civil society organizations. Genocide Watch issued a genocide alert on Kashmir last year. India's belligerence, including intensified ceasefire violations targeting our civilian population, is posing a serious threat to peace and security. And that is of great concern. And I have written to the Secretary General of the UN and the President of the Security Council a number of letters, at least 8, if I can recall correctly. The government and people of Pakistan and the Kashmiri diaspora, with you, are gravely concerned at the deepening crisis in Jammu and Kashmir. I want to thank honorable members of the Conservative Friends of Kashmir for their unwavering support for the oppressed people of Kashmir. Neither the Kashmir dispute nor the massive human rights violations taking place there is a bilateral issue. It is a recognized international dispute, and there are umpteen Security Council resolutions on it. The international community must investigate these grave violations and prosecute those individuals in serious crimes against humanity. I will urge you to use your influence and put pressure on the Indian government to stop state terrorism, put an end to any moves to change the demographic structure of the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, peacefully settle the dispute in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions and wishes of the Kashmiri people. I would like to thank the honorable members of the Conservative Friends of Pakistan for arranging this event on the sidelines of the annual Conservative Party conference and assure you of our full cooperation in all areas of mutual interest. Long live Pakistan-UK friendship.